Okay, Myra Ical was a transgender woman whose body was found in a vacant lot off of Richmond in recent days. In the wake of this tragedy, the If It Bleeds, It Leads media jumped into high gear, failing to leave their gender bias at the door, using the pronoun he to refer to the deceased Ical, as well as being sure to note her birth name, Reuben. Here on the phone with us tonight to shed light on this story, as well as provide more insight into the larger issues around gender identification, we have Lou Weaver. Lou, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
My pleasure.
And, of course, a lot of attention has been shed on Myra's passing and the way in which she did pass. Can you please, though, take a minute to share a little bit with our listeners about who she was in life?
Well, we first met Myra's friends the other night at the vigil, and her friends say that she was really quiet. She worked hard cleaning homes and offices. I'm told that she was always there for her friends. One friend told me that at about a time when she herself was homeless, and even though Myra didn't have much, Myra took her in and helped her get back on her feet. Any personal information about her attending our support groups and stuff, I can't actually relay to you, but I can say that people state remember her being around.
What were some of the day-to-day challenges Myra faces living as a woman, and for that matter, all transgender persons face, especially here in the Lone Star State?
Well, Myra, like any other transgender person, has to face a lot of problems on a regular basis. For instance, say that my employers find out that I'm transgendered, they can tell me we don't like that kind around here, and they can actually fire me. It is next to impossible to get an ID that correctly states my gender, and so it's very easily found out whether or not I'm a trans person. Let's say that my landlord finds out I'm a transgender. I could actually get evicted. If I'm homeless, no emergency shelter in Houston will work with me simply because I am trans. There's a reason the trans population suffers the highest unemployment rates, over 50%, and highest homeless rates, over 20% here in Houston, according to the Houston Health Department. And we've had clients who turn up black and blue for appointments just because they dared leave their home and have the audacity to believe that they have the right to get on a public bus to get to their appointment. I want you to think about something. For the girls, it usually takes about 2 hours to get ready to just step outside. And it's not because they think they're a diva. They are just trying to go unnoticed that they aren't abused or killed. Thinking about living with that kind of stress 24/7, day in, day out, month after month, year after year. Think about that, how that would be for you. And Myra wasn't immune to these common issues. As for these questions of being a hate crime, our community always expects the worst and hopes for the best. Nobody wants this to be a hate crime. And also, it should be noted that transgender people were specifically excluded from the James Byrd Hate Crimes Act, even though the Byrd family asked that it be included. So even if it was a hate crime, they couldn't prosecute it as one.
And obviously losing a community member is extremely difficult. And, of course, all of us here at the IndyMedia Collective extend our condolences to family and friends. But how do you feel about the way the mainstream media covered this tragedy?
Well, in hindsight, I can understand why they did what they did. HPD's Public Relations Department laid the groundwork by referring to the areas being known for drugs, homelessness, and prostitution, when they could have also noted that she had been found within a block of a bus and train station. The media picked up on that bit of misleading information, and I say misleading because the police later said that homelessness, prostitution, and drug use were not factors in the murder, and they used it to insinuate that Myra was a homeless prostitute, drug addict, and some, like the Houston Press, went as far to say that Myra tricked the cops. I feel that Myra was not only brutally murdered, her memory was slandered. I want to see media use the industry standard when reporting news affecting the transgender population. The AP Guidebook, the New York Times Resource Guide, and the GLAAD Media Resource Guide all do a great job of instructing members of the media how to report on TG stories.
What do you think about where the current investigation stands? Is this being pursued by the HPD as a hate crime?
Well, while we do know that there were some irregularities to the way the crime scene was handled, we now know that HPD has the name of a person of interest. And HPD has repeatedly stated that there's no evidence to support the idea that this crime was a hate crime. So unless someone heard the murderer using hate speech while the murder was taking place or spray painted a slur at the crime scene, there wouldn't be any evidence of a hate crime. However, none of that really matters because transgender people are excluded from hate crime protection. It's been reported that the hate crime issue is contingent upon evidence when, in fact, even if we had a ton of evidence, even a confession, it would never be prosecuted as a hate crime because the Texas legislature wanted to leave the transgender community out of that bill.
And in terms of this person of interest, just to touch upon that for a minute, do you have any information as to whether this person of interest is someone known to her, or was this a random act of violence?
They haven't told us that yet. All they've really said is that they are talking to somebody. I think they're just, trying to follow all their leads.
And many of our listeners missed the opportunity to attend the vigil that was held here in the Montrose for Myra this past Monday. Can you describe that scene for us?
That was just an amazing night for me. When we started organizing this event the Thursday prior, we anticipated maybe having 25 or 35 people out there. And when we took our little stage area there, and to be able to look out on the crowd of 250, 300 people and see that people gathered in an empty field to pay tribute to a woman they didn't know, that to me was just amazing. The sunset that night was just brilliant, and people just gathering because of the fact that they cared that this woman was senselessly murdered and then tragically slandered in the media, and they wanted to make a difference. And out of this tragedy, it seems like hope can arise, that positive things have come forth from it.
So what are your next steps and the next steps of both the Houston LGBT as well as the transgender communities here in Houston to ensure that there is justice for Myra?
Well, tomorrow we will pay our last respects to Myra at her wake, and we won't stop looking for justice. There's still flyers up and around. We put up flyers saying that Crime Stoppers is offering a $5,000 tip if somebody were to call 222-TIPS and leave any information. They can remain strictly anonymous to bring the murder to justice. And if anybody has information, they can call me personally or the Trans Center. They can look us up on Facebook. They can contact ggcenter.org. And one of the things that I would like to see is make sure that the media stays on top of this and reports it correctly, and any future things against the transgender community or positive notes for the trans community as well that get published.
And in terms of the wake, is that going to be a private ceremony, or do they also want supporters?
They have encouraged family and friends to come tomorrow to the wake. It is open to everybody. It's at the Santana Funeral Home located at 5352 Katy Freeway off the corner of I-10 and TC Jester. And the Transgender Foundation of America as a group, we are going to be sending flowers, and then a lot of us will stop by and see her family and friends there as well.
And for people that maybe are just hearing about this case, what other resources, other than the ones you've already given, can people tap into in terms of getting coverage?
You mean like getting the media out there? Getting the media out there, or even just finding more specifics about the case and how they can get involved to make sure that justice is served. All of the major news media has covered this. 11, 13, everything. You can see that on their websites. The Transgender Foundation of America, we have a website. It is on there as well if people want to follow up and stay on top of what's going on. They can contact myself or Kristen via Facebook, and that's Kristen Williams. We are starting to stay in the loop with the police department and make sure that it seemed like at first that they thought, oh, it's just a trans woman or a man in a skirt in a ditch, and they didn't want to seem to do a lot about it. But that attitude has changed, so we want to make sure that that's the way it stays. Like you said at the beginning, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So we want to make sure that we don't go away, we don't go quietly, that the time for silence is over, and that if we stay on it, they will stay on it. Okay, thank you again, Lou, for being with us. Is there any last comments you have that you want to make sure to get out on the air for people tuning in tonight? I just want to say thank you to my community. I am very proud of the people that turned out the other night, and very proud of all the media sources that want to continue to get this right and put the word out for this woman. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.